I'm Pastor Troy right here on the doc.org. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we're doing shows that will get you up and out and at it. But right now, sit back and relax for just a little bit here. We're going to really enrich your life on the doc.org every Tuesday and Thursday, dropping episodes all about conversations to propel your faith out of the shallows and into the deep. I love that beautiful picture. My daughter Drew sitting on the dock of the bay by Otis Redding. It's a spiritual thing for me. I know it was a secular song for him, but I want us to sit here together and hear a little bit about an incredible couple today and what they've meant in my life, and I think it will be a challenge to your life as well. Go find this show if you're watching us, you found us. But did you know we're on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes? And listen to this, as she drops those lower thirds and brings up my main graphic, we're also on Google Play, Facebook, Roku, Rumble, and Sermonet. But we really want you to watch us on those main three. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, and Getter are our social media network. And you can share your own testimony. We'd love to know how you met. Tell us how you met your husband or wife. Did you get them out of a haircut? That's what we found out from Carrie. He met Karen through her sister cutting his hair. And how much did you have to put out in a sense of stuff on your first date? Was it he had a cup of tea, a glass of tea, did you have to buy lobster? Tell us what you spent on your first date. We want to hear about that, and we'll see how that turned out. But Carrie did really well, so we'll hear more about that. Go back and watch episode 1. Incredible about their background and their lives. I learned a lot. We're going to tie that into this special episode today. So let's hear from you on social media. We want to hear your testimony. If you're called to prayer ministry, let us know that. We'll link you up with Karen, and she'll help you get connected with a group of people. Karen, we're not in an interview yet, but you don't have to be. We don't have to be, today we don't have to be in the city. You can get on phone conferences and Zoom calls and conference calls. You can be in prayer intercessory groups now that span the globe, correct? Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're out there and you're really interested in getting involved in this, let us know. We'll get you linked up to her. So, and check in the show notes and make sure you do that. Hit subscribe, like, notify, make comments on the show, pass this on to other people. We'd love to have you as a Patreon partner or sponsor in the show. 4 levels that you can partner with the show. You can be part of the show team and you can sponsor our show and be a part of helping this get forward and getting new stuff out. And 3 levels of sponsorship. If you are a business owner, Christian business owner, organization, church, or whatever, we'll work with you. So your church can be a sponsor, your organization can be a sponsor. We'll actually do some shows on you and we'll help you provide you with some marketing material and content. So go to Patreon, download the app, find On the Doc, and get that information and be a part of our team. And you can also go and become one of our, go shop at one of our affiliate partners. Our first affiliate partner ever in season 3 is the slnt.com. Promo code OTD. Go shop there. Check out their Faraday bag products right here on the set. I have my phone in my Faraday bag right now. Until I pull this phone out, nobody can get a hold of me. I am in secrecy other than me and you and those in this room. We got the Faraday bag because we found out that Google was listening to our closed set conversations. They were sending us marketing based on things we were saying in a closed set marketing because Beth would have her phone on vibrate, not airplane mode. So they were listening and then she would get marketing. And then we griped at her about it the next day. And I forgot to put mine in vibrate that day. And guess what? Everything I griped about, I got the next night at 3 a.m. I started getting emails from Google on those products we were talking about in a closed set. People are listening all the time. If you don't want them to listen, you don't want them to steal your key fob, you don't want them to steal your RFID, check out these Faraday bag products from SLNT. Go check that out. We'll share a little more commercial with you at the end of the show. Go to onthedoc.org, find out more about our show, links to all of our platforms. We're on, like I said, like 7 platforms. If you're totally confused, email us at info@onthedoc.org. We'll get you linked up. We can get you linked up with Karen, but you need to reach out to us and we'll help you do that. I'm Pastor Troy, and we're ready to go here. Got Mother Beth in studio. Mother Beth, you doing okay?
I just want to say I got Dairy Queen for my first date.
Is that what we got? We went to
bowling, and then we went to Heron Dairy Queen.
Well, Heron or Carterville?
Heron.
You know, that's
because remember it was all pink and had the
that's right
45s.
That had the 45. They were cool.
Was really
they were cool.
Cool.
Dairy Queen was cool. She likes Dairy Queen. She thinks a romantic date is Dairy Queen barbecue,
but not anymore.
I'm from Memphis.
They don't
3-time world championship participation in John Wells barbecue, and she'd tell you, I sure like that Dairy Queen barbecue. It's not even.
They don't have it anymore.
Yeah, they got rid of it because it's not real. It's
makes me
not
so
real.
Sad.
Yeah, got Beth on the set. Donna Kranuski's in the booth. She's both our producer, so she'll email you back. But today she's controlling all the knobs. She has no microphone because you have not partnered or sponsored with this show, so we don't have enough money to buy those 2 more mics. And she has a camera today. We have a spare camera, but we don't have a spare mic. So we're trying to get a couple more mics. We have a whole nother studio to your left that you can't see, and we're going to be doing some shows that use just that studio or can use both simultaneously. So help us out, be a partner or sponsor, and either way. And Donna, we're glad to have you here. Can't say a word. She's over there locked down. We're in Taking It to the Streets Part 2. We got Karen Paubel in studio with her husband in tow from Highland, Illinois. Karen and Carrie Paubel, incredibly good-looking couple, other than the fact that she had to pan hit you to get you here this morning from Highland. And we're glad to have you. First episode was fantastic. In this episode, we're going to get to the meat of why I really wanted Karen in here. In Part 3, we're going to get to something deep, too, that she's really been sharing with me over the years. And I want her to talk about that in Part 3, so you won't want to miss that. And in Part 3, we'll do a little bit of a roundtable. We'll do some free stuff where we just kind of work on some stuff and just kind of chat about some other subjects. It'll be fun. So you never want to miss our roundtable Part 3 finale. But in this episode, I want to talk about prayer covering for pastors and servants of the gospel. I learned something, Karen. Welcome back to the show again. Doing okay? Did you make it through your first On the Dock broadcast?
I made it, yeah.
You did.
Carrie, what do you think about it? You've seen the show, but now you're here.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
It's greater than life, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
till you've come in this massive studio with all of our cameramen and operators and our makeup and and the person that gets you hot tea, right? That's Beth. And then we did see our executive director came in, didn't he?
He popped in.
He popped in.
And he is also from Highland. We met him at the
Lucas
same
Winkler.
time that we met.
And I'm going to say Lucas
Carrie
came
and
because he knew
Karen.
you were going to be here and he wanted to set eyes on you. And he wanted to make sure that everything went well with your episode because we had a couple little tweaks yesterday. So he came here from another job to slip in to make sure everything was going well with your broadcast,
he
Karen.
is.
So
I
that's
wanted to ask you guys, did you move to Highland immediately after you got married, or did that come later? Did you live in St. Louis?
It
at
came
first?
later. We lived in Jennings for, let's see, I bought that. We lived there, we got married in 89. So we lived there and from 1989 to 1995.
when did you get married in 89?
November 11th.
We got married in 89 as well. So
Did you?
August 5th, yeah.
yeah. So you moved there, start having your kids. Did you move there? Did you start having kids in Highland, or had you already had some kids when you moved?
We had our oldest one born in 93. And I was going to stay there till he was in school. But then our circumstances kind of pushed us out of there. And the second one came along, and we had trouble selling the house. We bought the house in Highland in 94,
Really?
but we couldn't sell our house. So we took that time to just keep every weekend, we'd bring stuff over. So finally, it got to the point where I said, this house isn't going to sell. So I told Karen, I said, we're moving. We're just going
Right.
to let that house go. That's it. And as soon as I said that, it was about 2 weeks later, we got an offer on the house. So that made everything work out well. And we moved to Highland like in May of 1995. Our daughter had just been born in March.
Wow.
So we had
I'm moving
Nolan
to
Lane.
faith. I'm moving
You
to
had
faith.
Nolan Lane when you moved.
Yeah, great move. Great
Oh,
move.
yeah, God always makes us wait to
To the last
minute,
second. I
doesn't
mean, the
he?
last
You
second.
know?
We have the exact same story. We when we felt called to go to seminary, we'd sold our business. We had told my grandparents we were going to sell a family business. Nobody in the family wanted to buy it, so we sold it to the Bracy's, which was a great decision. And the house that we had was a new house, but my grandparents had financed it for us as a contract house for us, so we didn't have a bank or anything. So we were getting right up the time to leave, literally packing up in our truck, backing the truck up to load up to go to seminary because you got to start class in a week or two, and I got to do all this stuff. And I finally went to my grandparents and said, we're just going to have to rent it out. And my grandma says, you're not renting that house out. It'll sit empty. I said, well, golly, have you seen what we're going to make in seminary? We can't afford to live. We're going to live off our loans. I can't make this payment. And so her and I just talked to the Lord, and the Lord said, go. So we loaded up the truck, literally loaded up the truck. And while we were in the driveway with the truck almost loaded, pulled door to shut, our realtor pops in the driveway, or somebody popped in to look at the house. They kind of look at your house real quick. And we said, sure. And she walked out and said, well, who's your realtor? And I said, yeah. And I think I want to buy your house. So I connected her to the realtor. And I'll tell you the funny thing about it in a minute. This is in Heron, 11th Street. And And she calls a realtor. A realtor calls me back and says, "Yeah, she's serious enough. She's made a cash offer at full asking price."
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cash offer, full asking price.
God.
She says, "Can you guys stay to sign the paper?" She's ready to close now. And I said, "No, we got to leave." So we ended up doing it by FedEx.
Yeah.
But we left. We were in the vehicle leaving like that, like that. And God provides, you know what I mean? God tests you sometimes. And we're going to talk about how God's tested me at times. And when God's tested me at times, sometimes he uses Karen to test me. She tested you a bit too, right? She probably said, I'm not driving back one more time across here. But it's good to hear about your faith in that, because a lot of times people don't think accountants have faith. I often accuse my bookkeeper, my accountant in our church, Tracy, of not having a lot of faith, because she'll say, "Pastor, you want to do that, but we don't have resources for that." But we've been working together long enough that she'll go, "I know we don't have that, but I know God provides for you." And she says, "Go for it." And then she always says, "I knew he would." So I've learned that accountants can get great faith when they see the hand of God provides. Yeah. And is that something you develop over time, or just something you always had? You seem to be a trusting kind of guy.
Huh?
His spiritual gift is faith.
No, isn't that amazing?
And I'm low on it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's rare for somebody in his occupation, because they're just hardline numbers. You know what I mean? It's just the numbers there are not there. And that's kind of what my accountant said in the church here. She says, "Well, I know the numbers aren't there," but she says, "But I also have learned that when your God tells you to do it, he will provide," and he does. And it's always a different place, I'll come in and say, "Yeah, by the way, Karen, Tracy, somebody just called me and said, boom." And you go, "Well, I knew it was coming. I just didn't know where." So you learn that God, if it's God, God will provide.
Right.
And I think you've learned that well. Look, I want to get into this. One thing I want to say this to you as we introduce the whole concept of prayer covering for pastors and servants of the gospel. This could be anybody else doing ministry for the Lord. It doesn't have to be just clergy or stuff like that. It could be other ministries. You pray for Fred Bishop and No Greater Love, and Fred's a pastor, but he's in a parachurch ministry and other ministers. How many ministers and ministries do you pray for kind of actively? I'm not talking about just occasionally, pretty regularly.
There's probably about 30 that I probably have on my hit list, but people come at different times. And probably you're the top of the list.
Yeah. Who are your biggest pains in the prayer needs?
Well, and even when we were called to hire,
you can say me. Yeah,
it was you. It was you. But when we could not connect with the church in anywhere in Highland, and then we went to the first service, and 10 minutes we looked at each other. They had holy ground, and we said, "This is where we're called." And even when you left, I knew that God was going to use you worldwide, that God was like, I don't know anybody who's had the tenacity to stay in ministry of what you guys have faced. I know a lot. I probably don't even know half of your stories.
Yeah, most of it.
But I know when, God draws me in to pray. And
she's only called me at times. We've had years when we haven't spoken. I've gotten your email and your prayer for your children, and I get those. Every time you send them out, I get stuff. You've probably communicated with Beth over the years more than that. And I want to say this, and I'll get into the details of this. We would see them at reunions and see them at events, and we were up and here and there. But to actually call and talk about a prayer exchange, it doesn't mean she wouldn't email or text me and say, "Hey, I've got this on the heart for you," and she'll text me and Beth. And a lot of times I don't necessarily answer. Beth will answer. I just see that and mark it in. And that's going to be a truth I'm going to tell you that's really powerful about I know you're called, because you just lay it out there and you just trust God to execute. You're like that prophet that was told to go do it and then go back home. You just lay it out there and say, "Hey, I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you, but here's what the Lord told me to do. I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway." And your timing is impeccable. And what you do to do it and when you do it is what makes it so powerful. I learned in this previous episode, go watch part 1, that I did not know prayer came from your dad. I didn't know your hunger for the Bible came from your dad and how you were raised up, and then that a nun inspired you from your Catholic roots. And it explains everything about your tenacity, because there is a tenacity in the Spirit-filled Catholic movement to be rooted and grounded in prayer. I know it doesn't look like that today in a lot of the Catholic Church or a lot of the mainline churches today. They're apostate differently, but you can find those old sisters, those old nuns, those old Christian brothers, the old Jesuits that were grounded and rooted. And there's great heroes in that faith. And I'm realizing that was deeply rooted in you. And I have to say to you, I'm glad about that, because most of up until we learned that, I have assumed the reason you have this intercessory prayer is because I was such a bad pastor, so bad at what I did. God forced you into this to save me from doing pitiful, stupid stuff all the time. And I have always felt, I've kind of felt partly responsible for that. I don't feel responsible now at all. I now realize that's in your DNA spiritually. That's who you are. And it really helps me understand that greatly. I've always felt like, my God, you got to leave the woman alone. She shouldn't have to keep cleaning up Troy on aisle 3, clean up Troy on aisle 4. He's fixing to do something really stupid. You need to call and tell him because he God say he's not listening to me, but Karen, he knows. He'll tuck your call. So I cannot tell you the number of times when you have called. It really in the last 15, 20 years, maybe 5 times. I mean, text and emails a lot, but exchanges a lot. Has it required me to be bi-directional? No. You just put it out there. You share your prayers. You share your intercession. You've called when there's something good to listen to. You've texted when there's a good link, you reach out to our church team. You pray for our church regularly. I remember we have a thing called a spiritual online greeter. And so when we started doing the telecast, people would say, well, who's Moo Holstein? And why does she keep sending this large stuff? I said, that's Karen. And they said it's kind of really long and a lot of stuff they're like. I said, it's fine. Don't block it. I mean, she's serious and I need her. So everybody's grown to love that. And your stuff is pushed out now and appreciated because the timing you have is impeccable. I had been away from Highland Hope for quite a while. We were in Waterloo. We went from Highland, starting the church, to Waterloo. It was a 2-year process. Highland, we left in celebration. We went to go start another church. And we were over there for about a year. The Methodist Church was hanging us out financially. We were just that was when the gases was, LP gas went to naturally it went to 4 times, 5 times the price. Everything was so expensive. It was crazy in 2000. And the conference had given us a real low budget, and then they didn't give us all that budget. So we didn't even have our housing allowance incomplete. So Beth and I were hemorrhaging. We were starting a new church, the second new church for the Methodist Church, hemorrhaging out financially. We had over 100 people in the congregation coming to a church. We actually we weren't meeting in school. We were meeting in an old church, and we were just hemorrhaging to pay. It took everything we had in what they were giving us monthly to pay the gas bill for the church and to keep it on because they didn't allow housing allowance sufficient for us. And we were being told over and over again, it's coming. You're going to get this 8,000. Back in those days, that would have covered it. And we were just short. And so we just used our credit cards, Carrie. We went in debt till everything was maxed and everything was stretched. And we quit taking salary because we had 100 new babies in the Lord. And we wanted to see them come. We
also had 4 kids at home.
We had 4 kids at home. And people, I mean, you have no deal. She has 4 kids at home, and I do too. Okay. But I'm also a pastor who has a sheep pen of 100 newborn sheep that God's put in your responsibility. And I understand I'm not their God, but I'm their pastor. I'm their under shepherd. And it's my job to provide a green pasture. And I'm thinking, if you find out that your church is screwing you over and your pastor over this money, over this, that you're not going to want to stay United Methodist. You're going to want to go somewhere else. So we sheltered them from that. We absorbed that as long as we could. I cannot tell you, we went to church service at one place where we were just devastatedly broke at the time, like 11,000 in the hole. And we went to Sunday night at St. Matthew's Church, and we went up and hid in the balcony because we were just in pain. The church was letting us down. They were failing us. And we went up there to hide, just to worship. And a little old man comes up to the pastor at St. Matthew's, Bob Souders. A little man comes up to me and says, and then I see Souders look up at the balcony because he had seen us up there. They were one of our Shane's church, and then were one of our sponsored churches. And he says, yeah, Beth and Troy are in the balcony. Oh, no. Yes. Yeah, this brother just came to give a word that the Lord, he said he was to bless somebody here struggling in ministry, and the Lord had told him to do it now. So would you guys come down? I know it's you because you're here. So we come down to the platform, St. Matthew's Methodist Church, big church on TV. We get on the platform, and the guy says, I would like to present you a check for $11,000. That's what we were in the hole.
Gosh.
Oh. And the St. Matthew's pastor, he didn't know how much he was going to give. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, he said, had I known, I would have said, we'll talk to you later, because he wanted to hustle it back. He told me he was irritated afterwards that he gave me the $11,000. He gave us $11,000, and God got us out of it. And there were times when we couldn't buy groceries, and we'd come back, and somebody just anonymously had bought groceries and made them available to us. And we were so frustrated about everything. Gosh, I was carrying the weight of 1,000 people on my shoulders, and we were fighting a battle. We later find out that my DS was never even putting the money through. Later on, we found out he had lied the whole time about the money, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And we got in the meeting. Shane went with me to a meeting. And so Troy's done everything he can. I wrote a letter to the bishop that says, either let me get a second job, because we weren't, Methodists can't have a second job. You're full time. Let me get a second job so I can fund this, or let me go to part time and fund it, or give me the money or shoot me. But I can't stand to watch this anymore. So my bishop saw it as me giving her an ultimatum and thought I was rebelling against her authority. Because she
didn't know we were being lied to.
And then
she didn't know where we were.
In the letter, I told her
from, really.
We have been moving our salary. We haven't taken a salary in over 4 months because we've been giving it to pay the gas bill, to pay this bill and that bill, because we're short this much money from the original agreement. And she thought we were mismanaged. I was accused of mismanaging the conference funds by not paying myself and paying the gas bill. They count me with mismanagement. Now I've threatened my bishop by let me go part-time and get a job, or else move me. I can't watch this happen to these sheep. You're my chief bishop, my shepherd. They called me into a meeting and they're going to cut my head off. I didn't know this. Shane was my chairman. So we went to the meeting, and in the meeting we discover, I said, Shane says it's easy. It's all about the money y'all promised him. His letter's not stupid. It's reasonable. And then basically the bishop's assistant pushed a letter over that says, look at this. And it was a note saying that my DS, who's sitting at the table, he had recommended against giving us the money. We didn't do this to you, brother. He did it. Shane said my face went white. I drained out. It was like I'd been betrayed. Mm-hmm. We had suffered for all this time, and I'd been lied to. And I just don't function well in disloyal environments. And it was a changing moment for us.
That was those were probably the 2 hardest years.
We went through audit. They made me have an audit before that. Had to go to counseling because I objected to authority. We got through all that. The audit was shining. They said we had impeccable books, and we did. The auditor said I was put in a no-win scenario. What else do you expect the man to do? The counselor said he was betrayed. What do you expect him not to be angry? He should be angry. So we came through it shining, but in the middle of that, in one of our worst moments, we were going to Walmart.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You tell this story wrong.
I know. Go ahead.
You always tell it wrong. I'm at home one day and I get a phone call from Karen. And Karen says, Beth, God gave me a word for Troy, but I don't know. I'm afraid to call him and tell him. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, well, I'm going to tell you, and maybe you'll know what it means. And then if you know what it means, you can tell him for me. Because I'm just afraid to tell him. And I said, okay. So I said, what is it? She said, God says get off the throne. She said, do you have any idea what that means? I said, yeah, I know what that means.
Yeah, I know that.
And she said, okay, will you tell Troy for me? And I said, yeah, I'll tell him.
Yeah, so
you always tell it wrong.
I didn't matter. She still called at the right time. And I was carrying the weight of that. And then I realized this is God's problem. And when I gave it to God, solutions started happening. We ended up getting moved. The people ended up in the right place. And
we hated that at first, too. We fought it the whole way.
Oh, my gosh. We fought it all the way to Pawnee.
We
lived out of boxes for 3 years before we settled in. But then just about 2 years ago, I was at a crossroads in my ministry here. And gosh, I hadn't really talked to you, Karen. I mean, other than going to the reunions and stuff like that, we hadn't talked about an intercession. It's not like you hadn't given ideas and advices, but to call me maybe 5 times in the last 5, 6, 7 years where you called to intercede, the Lord woke me up after we had a meeting here where I really made a decision to press forward. And I really told people, if you don't want to press forward and reach people for Christ that are poor, that are in Africa and Thailand, if you don't want to reach out to the impoverished people through the House of Hope, we're no longer an us versus them church. We're us, and all you that think there's an us and them, there's the door. You know, you can hit it, but I'm not pastoring that kind of mentality. So I drew a line in the sand. The next morning, early in the morning at 6:00, the Lord woke me up out of a dead sleep and said, I want to talk to you. And I was excited because I thought the Lord was going to fire me. The reason we got in so much trouble and I had to have that meeting is because I had hidden some stuff in a battle behind the lines of scrimmage here at the church with some people that had caused trouble in our leadership about the us versus them mentality. I've been hiding that for years and trying to fight through it. And they were sabotaging stuff, but I don't like to bow to the devil's fight. I want to preach the gospel in the pulpit. I want to tell people about the positive things. And so I refuse to talk to the devil's people. I just don't want to talk to them. I'm like Jesus, shut up. Don't speak a word. Come out and go away. You get healed, but don't go tell people what I did. So I tried to just power through it like I do a lot of things with anointing and the ministry. And it just was, it was like wolves were coming in eating sheep every day. And I just finally got in August and got tired of it and said, no more. And I had the meeting. And then I realized the cause of it was me. I'd put myself back on the throne. Kind of. I was fighting a battle and I really need to just lay it out and say, this is it. You can leave or not leave. But as for me and my house and the Lord, we're going to do this. And I did that. And I got the next one thing, the Lord's going to fire me because I realized it was really what happened was people's fault, but I let it happen on my watch. So I got up, got out of bed. I never get out of bed at 6 o'clock unless I have to. It's barbecue or something. I'm like an 8 o'clock, 8 to 9 devotion, start at 9. But I'm up at 6. I told Beth, I'm going to my office. The Lord's calling me. And I'm thinking, he's going to fire me. I guess, thank God, I'm done with this. I need to be done. I get in there and I talk to the Lord, and the Lord tells me he's pleased with me. You finally took a stand, and he wrote me. I wrote these words down. He said to you, I want you to be patient and I want you to be obedient to what I do. And I got done worshiping and it was really good. And it was within 10 minutes of that word with the Lord, I'd stopped. You called. You called me about 6:45, 7 in the morning. It was early in the morning. It was too early. I don't know. Why would you call me?
I know you don't get up that early. I know. I don't know. I guess God told me.
She called me right on the back of that. I'm by myself and gives me a word that's identical to what the Lord just told me. And I go, I know exactly what you're talking about. I guess I'm not fired. I was almost disappointed, Karen. and you're like, wow. And I got off the phone with you, and no longer had you called. Then somebody called, offered me a job overseas, a good job. A job that was like 3 or 4 times what I would make now. And it was a difficult situation, but it was something I thought, man, I could do work in Highland, in Liberia. I could do work in Thailand. I'd be 5 hours away from each. And, be obedient, do my will, be patient. I'm going to think about it. I went to tell Beth. She laughed. She didn't like the idea. But quickly the Lord changed her heart. She came and said, I'll go where God, wants to lead you. And we submitted ourselves to the process of maybe leaving here and going to a radically different place, because what the Lord told me, just be obedient. It took months to vet that out, and we were committed to going. And in February, that became no longer where we felt the Lord was going. It was clear the Lord was saying, I realized you were going to sacrifice everything to be simply obedient to me. Mm-hmm. You've drawn a line in the sand. Your wife's willing to go wear what do you call it, burqa? Go to a foreign country where she would have to cover herself when we were outside our church area. You're willing to go to a place where it's 100 plus degrees, almost year round, and you're willing to go where I tell you to go. I'm ready to give you that ministry. And the Lord began to unload a vision on me of what could be next. And you called right at that time. You called when I needed to get off the throne. You called when I needed to, when the Lord's telling me something, I'm like, what? And then you call and like, man, y'all are ganging up on me. And I feel like at times you gang up with the Lord on me. So and then I'm going to tell you one thing. This is God's honest truth. We got into the process about October, and I began, one of the things, there was a warning that went off in my head that maybe this wasn't a good idea. Something didn't go well in one of the conversations with this church group. And I was calling to just level the guy that I was working with, and we're friends. I was calling to tell him, hey, you guys are just bum. You need to get your stuff together. And I have to tell you that I kind of said it, but I was very graceful, and he's a grace-filled brother. So I called and was a little harsh. But right as I was making the dial overseas, Karen was ringing my phone in. She was calling. I saw your call coming in, and I made a deliberate decision to not answer it. Because I was so frustrated. I need to tell this brother. And I get done. I call her back, and it was like, just hold the course. She was like, hold the course. So I had to call the brother back and say, I'm sorry, brother. I was told to hold the course. I messed up. So and the guy said, you were graceful. So, but it was funny what we'd only talked twice in that period, and both were at that same moment in my same office at the same time at critical junctures. I want to explain in this, what we want to talk about is prayer covering for pastors, because I can't even explain how important your timing is, your prayer is, the ministry you do. When you send a song in the mornings, when you give a focus or you say, hey, check this out. Can't tell you how often that's been a trigger point or a point to help me kind of recenter. What got you to the point of, I know you stepped up and said, hey, what about prayer? And you interceded for the church at Highland, but where did your focus move to prayer for pastors, and why do you think that is so essential?
Well, I think my favorite story of the Bible is Ananias. And I don't know why it just excites me of, he heard the call, he was listening, and I think of anything that one of my kids or of my faith, listen, obey. And you have to listen first. And that Ananias, after Paul, he says, go pray for Paul. Can you imagine, he's killing all these Christians and you're going to go pray for Paul? And he cried, tried to get out of it, and then he went. But it's like, what if Ananias would not have prayed for Paul? The fruit of going in, breaking up the ground before the ministry and what has to happen before, be on the front line. I mean, you go back to Moses where, when his arms were lifted up. I mean, and your life, both of you guys' life. I mean, I know you pray a lot, but you need to be so covered. And people holding up your arms, as long as they were holding up his arms, the battles were winning. And so, and I just see pastors. I have such a protective nature for pastors. I don't know why. Carrie calls me the pastor police, and it's like
you are. No, you are. And let me tell you, she's very hard. If pastors aren't faithful and truthful in that, she'll challenge them on that too. You've challenged pastors on that, on their unfaithfulness to the gospel, or they're misappropriating scripture or text, or they're not living up to the Bible. You'll prophetically and prayerfully hold them accountable and try to love them through it. And you've been successful in recovery on that, but you've also been rejected because of that. You've dealt with both of those, right? Yeah. You've had pastors turn their back on you and say, I don't need your services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, I just deliver it. And if it resonates, and I try to soften it, like, hey, this is what I heard. If it means something, if not,
you've always, I guess the word is you've always been grace-filled when you've handled it with me. Let me tell you what I think is the powerful of your prayer and what's powerful about doing it. If you're out there and you feel called to intercessory prayer for your church and stuff, that's good. We got an incredible intercessory prayer team here at the church, and the leader of that is Jerry Barnett, and we've done a show on her in season 2. Jerry's phenomenal. Evelyn was also in that show that we did on Lives Live Well, and she's here as well, and she's incredible. We got a whole team of intercessors, and Jerry has been like you. She's a kind of intercessor for us. We've got people that. I was Jerry's pastor back at my first church before you guys at Energy Cult. So, and we're connected by family. So I've got a few intercessors that have been with me my whole ministry, or significant portions of my ministry that have never, Fred Bishop never is not praying for me. I know every morning that he's praying for me, not just as a son, but in ministry. One of my people, Pay Cooper Mundolo, is going to be here. We'll do a show with Pay while he's here from Liberia. He's my person here. We're picking him up today. Tomorrow, I'm taking him to go have lunch with my mentor, Fred, because my mentor is praying for me so much that when Pay comes in, I want to connect him so he has a better feeling of who he's praying for, because every time Pay's here, we meet together, and that helps Fred be able to know him and pray for him better. And so I'm literally driving all the way to St. Louis tomorrow to let my mentor have time with somebody I'm working closely with so he can accentuate his prayer covering for him. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And Fred, I've been an intercessor for
absolutely.
No Greater Love. I mean, he had me, praying hide. He makes everybody read. And then Father Nash. I mean, the story of Father Nash with Charles Finney, and he really wasn't that successful at the pulpit. And then I think they kicked him out.
Yep.
And he went and he prayed days and days before revivals and then once he died, Finney's revival stopped, right. And just the power of going in, and I don't want to be seen. I just want to be faithful, and I want the kingdom to come. And I love praying.
I love that.
And I have been at home for 30 years with the kids, and I really have tried to get out of the prayer closet, but God keeps coming.
Carrie, on your side, watching her work, and I know you're there, and I know you're supportive of that. I know you're forced to watch more church services on a Sunday than most men would want to. I'd be over on football. What has been your side of experiencing that praying along with her, giving her support for this, because I've never seen you as somebody blocking her from this. I mean, or saying, hey, you're a little obsessed there, or because prayer warriors are prophets of a way. And she is not obsessed. And I'm going to go through a list here of things I think are important. She's never obnoxious, never not grace-filled, never beyond her bounds. She delivers and lets it lay. I will tell you that right now. That's what's great about what you do. You have great timing. I always know you're in obedience to the Lord. And because of that, I respect what you bringing very quickly, because you wouldn't be here if the Lord hadn't commanded you to be here. So I take notice of that. You are one of the 2 people or 3 people that if you were to ring the phone while I'm in the pulpit, I would answer. Now that I've answered my mom's phone call in the pulpit. She's with the Lord now. But the church here knows that too. I've given enough testimony here that if Karen calls, we're answering. And when you speak up on Sunday, the spiritual greeters say, well, Karen said this online. They'll holler it out loud. Yeah. Karen's got something for you. So you've got credibility because of your restraint and because of your focus and because of your, what's been your viewpoint of watching this?
I've been supportive of it. And one thing that I just want to talk about, something that was kind of interesting, I think, that when Karen was in college, she always had trouble when she would write her essays, compositions, whatever. I had to do major surgery on them.
Did you say you had to read and rewrite her stuff? Welcome to the person that got my doctorate and my master's. She read I would write my papers at night. I was in SMU. I'd go to classes for 2 weeks at a time. I would call her at 10:30, say, I just emailed you the paper. When I wake up at 6, it needs to be done.
You had to type
There's
it?
not one page. No, I typed it, but it's so bad and so poorly written. I'd get up to her, rewrite it, and there would be just something she'd write back the next morning. You're going to have to fix this. I don't even understand this, but I fixed everything else. So, yes.
Yeah, so I did that. Of course, she was a little bit opposed, but
You got me A's. It's fine.
but she got
She did too. I got A's too. I graduated with honors because of Beth.
I was creative, but no organization.
And Beth knows,
Now-
every doctoral thing I wrote about, every paper I wrote, she's aware of. Wow. Yeah, isn't that great? She got a side doctorate.
So I say that because I was well versed in how she writes, the language she uses, how she puts things together, and so she's in her prayer closet, and she would say that, and I don't understand this, but she says, "Well, I can just lock in to God and what's going on. There's always something going on. I can just lock in, and then I can start writing whatever he's saying. I just write it down." So she gives me, and I've read a few of them. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, this is not her writing.
It's not her. It's something else. Something else is
It's
right.
not her vocabulary. It's not put together the way she writes. This isn't her writing.
Be nice. You're saying this is coherent.
Yeah.
This is the spirit of God.
I don't have to correct this. No.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, so I said, you know what? This is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to support this because I've never seen anything like this before, and this is really awesome. She is locking into something that's very important.
Yeah, you can tell this is grounded in something that's beyond her.
Yes.
This is something online. I think
Yes.
that's a key point here. I've had a couple intercessors. When we began the intercession team at Highland, that would be something that I would replicate everywhere else I went. And nobody told me in seminary you needed that. Nobody, you just assumed you pray. Like I said in the previous episode, prayer is an accoutrement in ministry. It's important.
What do you mean by that? Just
An accoutrement is a side thing. It's like the celery or the parsley.
sideline. Okay.
It's the salt you put on. I believe it's important too, but a pastor can't spend all their time in prayer. You can spend your morning in prayer and this in prayer and that in prayer. But man, you've got to roll your sleeves up and get in the game. And the priests are primarily slaughtering and killing animals and sacrificing things and doing that. And you're praying that you'll survive the day. I get up a lot of mornings and go, Lord, help me survive this day. And I look at Beth and tell her on a big day like yesterday or day before last, I look at her, we got all this to do today. God's going to be in it. I go have my hour devotion time. So I have that time for God that I give. And I just tell her, I said, here's my goal is to lay back down next to you before midnight tonight and give the Lord thanks. And so I'll lay down some days like I did last night. We got in before midnight westerday, barely. Because we're prepping for stuff. We had dinner. We had things at the church. I didn't walk out of the church till 11. I ate my dinner at 11:15 last night, and laid down. And then now you get regurg, so it's really dangerous now when you get to our age. And I laid down at 12 and said, Lord, thank you. I survived today. I'll be ready tomorrow for another one. And I live most days trying to give myself completely to the Lord. And that can eventually damage you. You can get tired. You need a break. I just took a vacation. So my only gear is all in. I'm just like, I run the nitrous most of the time. I'm learning to do a little differently, though, because I'm getting older. You can't do that all the time. So I'm trying to do it smarter, but I still even find that way I'm running nitrous. So you need people like Karen in your life. You need people like Beth Stable. You need people that like Donna. Donna's my assistant here at the church that kind of think things through for you. She'll go, do you know so-and-so probably needs a visit? Oh, yeah, thank you. I need that. Because it's not that I don't want to visit them. It's just in the running of things, my RPMs, I didn't catch that. And then I'll go, I knew that, but I didn't catch it. So I've got people around me that really make me better. And I wouldn't be the pastor I am without the right people. But I knew prayer needed to be there.
Karen, I'd like you to tell them a story about, and this pertains to her writing, about Pastor Doug. When you wrote something, if you recall, and he said, "Did you write this?" Remember? Tell. That's a great story. Tell him that.
I don't remember. But Pastor Doug is like, scholarly, right. He's a writer. I mean, he's written books for David C. Cook, and I don't know the story, Carrie.
Okay, well, she wrote. It was I can't remember the complete, but it was a commentary on how you should conduct yourself in a certain way, something like that. And she wrote it to him, and this is one of the things she got straight from God, and she showed it to me. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's
online."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's online.
So she sent it to him, and he knows her, and he said, "Did you write this?" And she said, "Well, I got it from God." And he said, "Are you sure that you wrote this?" And she said, "Well, I got it from God." And he said, "Absolutely positive you wrote this?" Well, yeah, sort of. And so he said, "Can I use this? This is really good." And she said, "Well, yeah, go ahead and use it." I thought it was so funny because he's an excellent writer. He knows Karen.
Yeah.
And when he saw this piece that she had written,
he recognized this is the Lord. See, when she called me that morning early, the words she used were, I have the note. I didn't bring it in here in the right notebook, but I have the note that I had just written. The Lord said, "Be patient and then be obedient." Mm-hmm. And I wrote it exactly right. And she used verbatim when she said, I'm sorry to call you early, but this is what I need to tell you. What she said in the words were that. Mm-hmm. And then she was gone. And that's all I needed. It's great. And that's what I want to say. Every year I've learned that you've got to have not just intercession, but you got to have people praying for you. And I've built that team over years, and both people to support the arms, people to be praying for me. And you can't do some of the things you think you can do without that. So it takes a support team. But everywhere I go, I started to build that. And there were places where I got the wrong people. You when you walk in and go, someone want to do prayer. Oh, I'm a deep intercessor. I'm a prayer warrior. And that may be the case. I went to Pawnee after Waterloo, right? I went to Highland, then I went to Waterloo. I went to Pawnee. We put together a prayer team there. There was a couple there that was kind of had a faith background, family background in ministry. And they said, well, we want to be your intercessors. And I said, fine. So they kind of started to build a prayer team, and it was okay. It was fine. Then she'd want this and that. And her husband suffered from extreme low self-esteem. And he actually had some gifts, but he he just had his low self-esteem was accelerating his ability to give. It was blocking his gifts. So I decided they were doing this together largely. And I know she's the driver of the family. I knew that. I mean, she's a bulldog. She was a bulldog. I'm just going to tell you. And he looked like a bulldog, but he was a puppy. And I just started trying to, every Sunday in the pulpit, every time I got a chance, I spoke kindly and thanked him and lifted him up and tried to lift up his frame. And I began to get the inclination that the reason his frame was so low was because she was good at breaking it. I began to get that inclination because we were in their house for a couple meals, and I could realize, that he was married to Sergeant Carter.
Yeah.
Move it, Gomer, move it. Remember Gomer Powell? Yeah. And so I pushed in harder to kind of lift him up, and he would shine in those moments. And he was traveling with No Greater Love with me and doing stuff like that. And one day she would grab me. It got to be regular before church and just unload every intercessory garbage point that I needed to know before I walk in. And people know this here very well. They know almost every church I've ever gone to. I don't want to hear about your stuff or your crap. I mean that lovingly. I don't want to hear about your crisis. Unless if it's a death moment, somebody's fallen over, yes. But I don't want to hear about baggage. I don't want to hear about your griping. I don't want to hear about this or that. Until I deliver, I get up, I have my devotion, I have a routine, I walk in, I have devotion with my staff. Until I deliver the message God's got on my heart for the day, I don't want to hear about the problem with the toilet in the back of the church. I don't want to hear about the fact that we don't have enough money in the church to pay the light bill, because it's time to deliver the word of God, and God is the answer. So I'm like, the baby's going to come. And I tell people, I will stay in this church till I'm the last person here. I will answer every question. I will visit with everybody as long as you want. We can go to dinner together. I will not leave till you have your need met by your pastor. But before I preach, please don't disturb that path.
Yeah, you need to be protected.
I do. And I believe my intercessors here are great. They're here before I walk in the building. They're already in the room praying for me. They make sure people know that my staff doesn't come to me in general unless it's critical or it enhances. And that's great. I'm protected. But I was in this church doing all that, and every Sunday she would catch me with something. Well, did you know? One Sunday she got me, and she says, I'm so tired of you. Every time you get in the pulpit, you lift up Rick. You don't know this, but Rick doesn't do anything. I was going to change the name to protect the innocent. And you never even give me any kind of appreciation for what I do in there. And this is before the service. And she's already been bothering me every week for it. And I finally looked at her and I just said, I need you to understand this. I'm changing the name to protect the innocent. And I said, before I do this, Deb, was that good? Before I do this, Deb,
They both passed away.
They both passed.
Oh.
I said, Deb, I need you to understand something. I will never lift up your name in a positive tone ever again in the front of this church, because you've demanded I do that. And the reason I do it for your husband is because nobody does it for him, and he needs it. And he needs it from you more than me. And I will continue to lift him up and enhance him, and I will never do this for you again. And by the way, you're no longer my intercessor, because an intercessor would never put baggage on me before I preach. Mm-hmm. So you're not called this, you're fired. And I fired my intercessor before the service that week. So you can get bad. What I love about the called intercession, and I would like you to talk about this, is you have to take risks. For you to pick up the phone and call me at 6:45 in the morning, you got to be nuts. Because you know my patterns. You do.
Yeah.
But what the Lord tells you to call, you got to call. Because had you not called when you called, it would have had a different impact to me an hour, 2-3 hours later. Or if you'd not talked to Beth at that time, and when I was wrestling this, you need to get off the throne. And I want to say this to you: your prayer, when you do what God, when you deliver God's message, when you write God's message down, and then you deliver God's message, it's like a 70s song. Otis Redding's song is a very old song, and we're still playing it today. A delivered message of prayer to a pastor or to a person is not a limited word. So I want you to know that when you call and give a word, the number of times that I've thought of the word, be patient and be patient, be obedient. The number of times I've said, a few months ago, I was struggling with something going on here about, dealing with financial issue, this and that, and trying to figure out, gosh, I don't know, Beth, how we're going to get through this. And I had to go. And I looked at her and said, it's not my problem. I'm gonna get off the throne. This is his problem. And I turned around and looked at God and said, God, this is your problem. And the number of times I've played that tune you told way back in 2000, the number of times I've played that was not enough. But it comes back like a good 70s music song. So when you give a word, you don't know when that word is going to be fulfilled or how often it's going to be fulfilled or how useful it's going to be. You just got to be obedient, and you got to be you got to take risk. And I think prayer intercessors, first pastors especially, you've really wrestled with that. There's times when you've wanted to call somebody else about something, and you've even called to consult with me and say, is this the way to handle this? How do I deal with this person? And I said, well, I would wait for the right time. Timing's everything. And I think the fact that you would call me to consult on not giving an interference move where you're going to speak to somebody else, the fact that you've thought that through and prayed that through and looked that through, that is what's required. Because you're taking the risk not being obnoxious, but timing's everything.
But I look at it as I get a probably 4:30 every morning, pray till get like there's 3 or 4 hours of prayer before I even
figure that one out right there, guys. I'd be back asleep 30 minutes around.
I get up. I love it. And I have different people from different countries or different areas that I pray for. I have real close people in Boston and Houston and LA. I do. And thank God for COVID, but I've connected with them. But
listen to her. Thank God for COVID because she can pray to more people.
No, but they're good.
I know.
You get lonely at a church. Sometimes people are not at that level to intercede with you.
No, there's very few people that when we talk about praying for pastors and that leaders, there's very few people that are called to that level of prayer ministry.
And I think you really, their honor and you have their back. And no matter what they say, you have confidence. And I think because I don't remember, I used to be a better gossip, but I don't remember now. But anyway, I think also I don't remember these stories. I am just like, okay, this is what God called me.
I don't either. I move on most stuff too. I have a short memory.
Yeah. I'm obedient. God uses me. This is the person I'm supposed to pray for. I've made these. I did it, and I just forget whether. Now I do know with the. I heard that's the only time I've heard audibly from God for you to get off the throne. Audibly, I heard. Yeah. So I felt
it was
like
exactly
that was
what I needed at the time.
Important message, and I know what to share, what not to share. I mean, it's just I just am in tune with the spirit of like, don't share it, do share it, go to prayer with it. And
just because when you're an intercessor, that's a fine line, because I tell my intercessors all the time, your better intercessors won't actually tell you 90% of what they're praying for. They don't need to. They're fighting battles. And they're protecting you from things that you don't really. If I knew all the things that were trying to hit me, then I couldn't focus on what I need to do. It's covering. Mm-hmm. It's prayer covering. I don't look at my roof all night and thank God it's not snowing or raining on me. I just get to where I look forward and enjoy my house. Mm-hmm. Pastors need to be able to enjoy their ministry and seek it, knowing that somebody's helping provide that spiritual covering. You do a great job of that. And when you do come and knock on the door, it's like, your house is on fire. That's when you need that, and your timing and your gifting to not be obnoxious about it, but simply because there's a lot of people that can get real obnoxious. Like the Lord said, Beth had family that had a group of gossip intercessors that would pray. They'd call the pastor and say, well, the Lord wants you to do so-and-so. And then they would proceed to try to make it all be fulfilled by nagging all the other husbands to make that person do it. They'd begin to try to manipulate the prayer, force the prophecy to come true. People will do this. They'll say, well, I have a word from the Lord. Then they start trying to,
and they start trying to make it happen.
Abraham did this. It was Abraham's biggest mistake. Abraham was told what would happen. Sarah was told what would happen. It didn't happen the way they wanted it to happen. So she said, here, take Hagar. How has that turned out for us today? We are fighting that battle of Ishmael to this day and Esau to this day because of that. Because Abraham didn't say, woman, no, stay out of this. God will provide when he's ready to provide. Right. Eve ate fruit, gave it to her husband. He took it and ate it. All he had to say was, woman, we're not eating that. He didn't do it. Now, we blame the women, but it was really Abraham's fault and Adam's fault. Yeah. Does the wife have a responsibility to say, no, we're not doing this either? Yes. But in both cases, it was the lack of. And so I really think what's really good is timing and knowing when to interfere and when not to interfere, where to draw the lines and not draw the lines. And I think those are critical to what you do, and to be trustworthy and grace-filled. And also sometimes just, I'm covering on this, but Lord, this is what you want me to tell them, then I'm going to do it. you know, and timing, and let it go. Because to be honest with you, the get off your throne moment, that day was a small church with 100 people. The get off the throne moment that I thought of the other day had to do with multiple churches around the planet. So your word back then was a word for those people of 100. And your word that I heard come back to me the other day affects 6 churches in Thailand, 15 churches in Africa, our church here, 2 other partnerships, the Heron House of Hope, the Hands of Hope Foundation, and the future ministry that we're doing in my household. So the word you gave then is greater today than ever. Joseph was given a vision of what would happen in his future 20 years before it really was fulfilled. So you don't know, even you don't know the power sometimes of what you're saying, just being obedient to it. Yeah.
Never thought about
You ever thought about the fact that you write something, tell people something, and don't realize it's going to be, you know, like you said, a divine word, almost like scripture.
But
like,
it's
like
not Karen's job as the intercessor
It's
to
not.
judge that. You're just listening to what God's
It's your
speaking.
job to filter what's yours from theirs and to let it go.
It was so like even going to Christchurch, like I asked your opinion, but Shane said, "Hey, you guys are praying for me. Tell me what you want." And so I just had some words, gave it to him, and he said it was just more, you know, just very the ministry is just going to be bigger than ever. And he, I don't know, Carrie and I went to Wednesday night service. He said, I got your prophecy out. He said the devil was working on me today, and so it's just a whole. But I asked your advice, and the next week I met the who was it? She's over the
associate pastor?
The youth.
Yeah, the youth.
The youth. And just praying for people in ministry and you know, and not trying to make something happen.
And easing your way into it
it's
and
just
trusting
like,
the Lord.
And it relaxed me of just saying, I'm here, I'm open, and I'm obedient to what God calls me to do. Now, when Shane's at the pulpit, we sit behind Melissa and him at the first service, and I am praying the entire time. I protect Shane. I just feel like he is a little boy up there. and it looks like he's like an 18-year-old. I'm like, oh, just cover him and just protect him. But you gave me great advice because you feel like, well, I'm here, I should be doing something.
Right.
And waiting on God for that has been a great advice.
You are doing something by being there and just being in his presence and just being available to him. As I wrap up this episode, because I was told by my tech that I need to wrap, but what would be 2 or 3 things if somebody's feeling a call to prayer for pastors and servants? Number one, get connected with somebody like yourself and get in a group that can support you. You get a support system around you. But what are 2 or 3 things that you need to lay out that would be, we've talked about, what are the key things first?
I think, are you called to it? You know,
Be called. There has to be a call.
Heart and just that intimacy with God, that's the number
your
one
own
priority.
time spent with God,
Yes.
the quantity of your time with God, is critically huge compared to the output that you may give, say, to me or that. To have that relationship with God, so when God does want to give you that word that's not yours, you're in a relationship to receive it.
Yes, you're just present, praying, and if He gives you an order, you deliver.
And don't get me wrong, Karen is tenacious. I mean, she is a tenacious. She's going to discharge her duty, but she's going to do it grace-filled, and her timing is great, and that timing is good because she's always developing that with the Lord.
But I think you build trust,
Oh,
and you know,
absolutely.
and I'm a communication major, and if I don't care if you can say anything if it's bathed in love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And absolutely.
So I think it's building trust, and you're not there to harm. You're not there to gossip. You are there to fulfill their ministry and the purpose of the kingdom.
Right.
And no other motive. Nothing for myself.
We're going to go deeper in part 3. We're going to go deeper. We'll get a little bit more on this. We're going to get into that, but there's something that she's been talking about with me a lot lately, and it's a key to unlocking next level ministry, I think, is dealing with the concept of, I'm going to call it in part 3, the curse of unforgiveness and the power of forgiveness. And we're going to do a little bit of roundtable. We'll do a couple other things that we want to follow up on. We'll let you dig a little deeper on a couple things, but we're going to come back in the next episode. And I want you to see, if you feel like you're being pulled toward intercession ministry in your church, for the church level, if you feel like at a ministry level, you want to begin to pray for pastors and intercessors, we want to connect you with Karen. Reach out to us. We'll try to get you a pathway to her, to talk with her, or maybe get in a network of people praying. You first of all have to have your own personal relationship with Jesus. You have to have your own prayer life already. You can't just start praying for people at pastoral ministry level and not have a serious, intimate time with God. So make sure you're having those things first. But when you're ready to step out into that, let us know. And if you're out there and you're a pastor or a minister and you don't have a prayer covering, please reach out to us on the doc, and we'll connect you up with her or some other people, and we'll actually see if we can find some people to start praying for you. We'd love to connect those things together. So go to onthedoc.org, check out our show, reach out to us at info@onthedoc.org. We'd love to partner you up with some prayer people that could help enhance your ministry and help, maybe even help you identify some people in your church that could do that and come and do some work with that. Email us at info@onthedoc.org for questions and answers. Go to YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Check out our show. Also on our other platforms, you can find all those other platforms at onthedoc.org. We'd love to hear your comments about this show. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, and Getter. Hey, and by the way, don't be mad when your pastor doesn't listen to you. Sometimes when people give me words, even when Karen gives me his word, I'll go, I know what that, it's weird. She's never given me a word, Carrie, that I didn't know what it was for. You've never said anything. She's never said a word to me that I didn't already know what I had done or what it was for. And I don't worry, just deliver it. And sometimes I know I'm getting to that. And I got to finish doing this. I'm fixing to take a right hook, and then I'm going to have to listen to Karen. So sometimes you don't listen. Doesn't feel like we listen right away, but I'm always paying attention and seeing what's happening. And sometimes the intercessor just delivers the message, and then the gift of interpretation is the person who receives it. Sometimes we'll see, but pay attention to that. Go hit subscribe, like, notify, tell us your stories about this, share it with other people. Great show today. Go to Patreon and be one of our 4 levels of partners. We'd love to have you help us enhance our show, make it better. And 3 levels of sponsorship. We'd love to have you as somebody to highlight on the show and sponsor your business, organization, and such. And go to slnt.com, promo code OTD, and get those products, and we'll give you some good discounts by using our promo code, or go to slnt.com/discount/OTD. If you don't have a church home, we'd love to have you here at Community Faith Church, 10 o'clock on Sundays, Wednesdays at 6:30. Go to coftv.com to find us. You can also check out our shows and episodes and things, what we're doing in worship. And we had a great Wednesday night last night, or you can check out our Sunday. And you can participate live. You get online, you can interact with us during the service with somebody that will actually speak to us in the room on your behalf or pray with you. So you can come, be interactive, but get in a church where the gospel is being preached and ministry is happening. Mother Beth, thank you for your day. Your time.
Yes, I've really enjoyed it.
Carrie, good to have you on the show. We'll be back, Karen, with part 3, and we're going to dig into this whole concept of forgiveness and unforgiveness. Donna, thank you so much. I'm Pastor Troy, and as we move on here, don't forget, we're going to run as the credits come in just a minute, and you come back for the next show. You don't want to miss it. Go back and watch our other stuff in season 1 and 2 and previous shows in season 3, and you do not want to miss part 3 of this. But as we leave you from the dock here and you head out in the waters, don't forget to go check out our new affiliate partner, SLNT, and we're going to roll that commercial before we roll out of this place. We'll see you soon. I'm Pastor Troy.
There are more than 8 billion phones in the world, a fact that threatens your privacy, security, and health. With Silent Pocket Faraday protection, you can regain control over your mobile devices. We get it. Privacy and security are inconvenient topics, and you may feel like you have nothing to hide, but the fact is that in the modern world, your laptop is never really off. Your phone emits a signal, even in airplane mode. And everything from your passport to your credit cards contains RFID, and all of it contains valuable private information that is easily exploited in the wrong hands. Silent Pocket offers a range of products you already use: wallets, bags, travel gear, laptop sleeves, key cases, but with the added protection of our patented Faraday technology, which turns your devices invisible and safe from the outside world. Many industries, from top business professionals to government officials, require the use of Faraday products for the day-to-day security of them and their staff. They understand that we are constantly at risk and take the necessary steps to prevent future attacks. We offer this elite technology to anyone that values their personal data, and we are proud to offer a premium range that fits seamlessly into your everyday life, providing security without looking like a tinfoil hat. As we learn to live with technology, Silent Pocket stands on the 3 pillars of privacy, security, and health. Our goal is to provide harmony with mobile technology without risking our most valuable information. We hope you'll trust us to help you do the same.